Hello and welcome to Big Picture. I am Vishal Dahiya, and today we will talk about the problem of Naxalism and how can we continue to fight this problem. Now, 4 BSF personnel were killed and 2 injured in an encounter with Naxals in the Kanker district of Chhattisgarh on Thursday. A few hours later, on Friday morning, 1 CRPF Jawan was also killed and one of his colleagues injured in a gun battle with Naxals in Dhamtari district of Chhattisgarh itself. According to security forces, Naxals have also suffered heavy casualties in these attacks. A Naxal-affected Bastar Lok Sabha constituency is all set to go for polls in the first phase on 11th of April. Security forces are making all efforts to ensure any threat of Naxal attack is kept at bay during the polls. Approximately 60,000 security personnel will be on duty in the state of Chhattisgarh during the polling. So what is the current situation in terms of containing the Naxal threat and how can it be tackled effectively and for good? For more on this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of guests today. Let me start by introducing them to you, beginning with Mr. Anil Chaudhary, former Secretary of Internal Security, Ministry of Home Affairs. We also have with us Professor Harshvi Pant, Distinguished Fellow and Head of ORF's Strategic Studies. And then we're also joined by Mr. Prakash Singh, the former DG of BSF and a well-known police officer. Let me begin with you, Mr. Chaudhary, and let's try and understand the problem of Naxalism in the context before we go ahead and talk about what is it that is happening today and how can we tackle it.
Vishal, thank you. A privilege to be on the panel with a person like Mr. Prakash Singh. I'll talk about the basics of the problem of Naxalism. See, let us start by depriving tribals who are dependent on forest produce for their living for centuries. 80s, the Act comes, Conservation Forest Act Amendment. They can't even leave it all cut trees. They can't even cut barks. They can't cut branches. You left them high and dry. And come the Maoists, called the Maoists thinkers. Here is a gun, here's 5,000 rupees a month for your family. Come, they have nothing to lose. So the people, illiterate masses who are very gullible, they have been weaned to take on Naxalism, where I'll tell you, the other thing is that the Naxalites, the Maoists, look for fault lines in our society and exploit it to the hilt. And whereas the government counts its success by figures of violence. Violence has gone down, the police takes a back seat, the Naxals gain in strength. Kanker, where this has happened, is on the fringe of the Naxal belt in this place. But they have penetrated. I believe they have reached Durg. So now we have to pull our socks up. We have to be vigilant all the time. I have a few more points to make. Please ask if there's any question you want.
Okay. You've correctly pointed out how it all started, but things have changed a lot. We have moved. We've come a long way from there. In fact, if you look at the data, then the recent government data says that the red corridor, according to Ministry of Home Affairs, shrunk from 106 districts to 90 districts. That itself is a very significant achievement.
I'll say don't go by statistics. Go to the roots of the problem. And the other thing is, if you want to have successes in counter-Naxal operations, intelligence, timely and active, actionable hold the key. The Naxal move in forest areas, their movement is from known to none. Our police parties moved in full uniform in the gaze of everybody. So our technical intelligence is very weak.
Okay.
Our technology support to internal security is non-existent. Unlike the defense forces, which have the Bureau of Police Research and, the DRDO, 1,000 strong since long, we have nothing. And the police, the other point I want to make is that in my view, it is the local police which can fight terrorism and Naxalism and insurgency much better than bringing in armed forces from outside. Army will be the worst. Paramilitary forces also, border security forces meant to guard our borders with Pakistan. You bring them into the hinterland, CRPF is stretched to its limits because of elections. So you are now, the local police understands the ethos, know the language, they know the topography, they can penetrate, they can find out what's happening instead of bringing in troops from outside. Let us learn lessons from Andhra Pradesh police, which made huge successes by their greyhounds. They raised greyhounds, and the greyhounds 20 teams used to go into the forest. They used to zigzag north, south, east, west. They didn't know. The Naxals didn't know where they were. And this team, and communication is another problem. Among the people there, they blow up towers, cell phones don't work, the villages are not connected. So it's not so simple a problem. Yeah, and politics comes in, sorry to say, elections are there. They will say, no, this is sham democracy, elections will not be held. But elections have to be held.
Okay. Let's bring in, the man who's been on the ground, Mr. Prakash Singh. Mr. Singh, welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. And, we would like to know as to how far have we come in terms of containing the threat of Naxalism, and are these steps being taken in the right direction?
You see, Mr. Chidambaram, during his tenure as Home Minister, he started what is popularly known as Operation Green Hunt. That started sometime in about 2010, and there were massive deployment of security forces in all the Naxal-affected districts. Now, deployment of security forces on a massive scale has had its impact, and during the last about 9 years or so, there has been considerable containment of the Maoist violence. In about 2010, a total of 223 districts were affected across the country. That number from 223 has come down to 90, which is a very, very substantial reduction in the number of districts affected. In terms of violent incidents also, the incidents have been coming down every year. Then you have Central Committee and Politburo members. About 17 of them have either been killed or they have been arrested, in any case neutralized one way or the other. So there have been significant successes on several fronts. You can say during the last 10 years, number of districts have come down, violence has come down, Central Committee, Politburo members are very much less, and the committee in its internal documents has admitted that it is in a state of what they call tactical retreat. They are bearing the brunt of the security forces offensive. So outwardly you can say that yes, we are in the process of containing Naxal violence. But I emphasize the word outwardly, because as far as the basic causes are concerned, what was mentioned just now as the root causes, those by and large still remain. You see, the tribal discontent is at the root of the problem. There has been massive displacement of tribal population in the affected states. There are no official figures, but according to one NGO, about 4 crore tribals have been displaced. Now that's a huge, huge number due to development projects, due to mining, due to deforestation for other reasons, development projects and all that. Now, the relief and rehabilitation policy is there, I think in 2006 they formed a relief and rehabilitation policy, but that has not really been very successful at the ground level, and displacement of tribal population from their habitat to other places where they were struggling for their livelihood, this has been a major cause. And when you are struggling for livelihood, as was just now pointed out by Mr. Chaudhary, I mean, if somebody comes to you and says, look, here is a gun, you join our ranks, we'll give you 5,000 rupees per month. So he is guaranteed livelihood, and on the other hand, when he becomes a Naxal and he goes to a village, he's treated by the villagers with great respect. So from Mr. Nobody, he becomes Mr. Somebody, and who is respected by the villagers, who is feared and respected by the villagers. So these causes, the basic causes have not been addressed, and we have noticed that, you see, Chidambaram's policy had one basic component: clear, hold and develop. What he meant was that you clear an area of the Maoists, then you sort of hold it, and then administrative control and development should begin. Now what we are witnessing in actual practice is that while the security forces are able to deliver, the required follow-up from the administration, administration is stepping into the vacuum, establishing their network and delivering essential services to the people, that doesn't happen. With the result that after a few years we go back to square one. So there are very fundamental problems in our approach, and while outwardly we are trying to gain control, and we are gaining control, but we are not going to the root of the problem, and the basic grievances remain.
Much needs to be done, Mr. Singh. I'll come back to you. Let's bring in, Professor Pant here. Professor Pant, as we heard both the gentlemen, and in terms of, the work done as well, I was going through the data as well. A lot of, work seems to be done in terms of mobile towers, roads being constructed and all that. But if you look at holistically, all of us seem to agree that this is a dual problem. It's as much a social problem as it is a security threat as well. So that two-pronged strategy which has been talked about for quite some time, that is seemingly the option.
It seems to me that, seemingly that's, in an ideal world, that's how you would resolve this problem. But the issue, of course, is that, what comes first and how do you go about actually articulating and operationalizing a policy that takes, these two aspects step by step. And I think there, as the two speakers have pointed out, we have had great successes in terms of what we have been able to accomplish with our internal security insofar as Maoism, Naxalism, however you define it, is concerned. And at the end of the day, it's a question of governance, both whether you look at it from a security perspective or you look at it from a development perspective. So long as state does not deliver, and deliver in a manner that the ordinary citizen, whether it is the Adivasi or whether it is the, any of us, so long as we don't feel connected to the state in some fundamental way, I think the alienation will continue. And so the inability of the state to deliver in some quarters of administrative delivery as well as larger governance issues is clearly a problem. But I think also when we look at the structures and processes that have been put into place in the last few years, I mean, the Green Hunt was being talked about, and then of course we have had movement towards, whether this government has talked of aspirational districts, for example, their approach towards finding these districts which are part of the Maoist belt, and how do you incorporate them into those which are more aspirational, where certain developmental social, physical, and social infrastructure development can be undertaken. So I think there is a sense in which the larger public policy in this country seems to get to the number of the problem, is getting the sense of the problem. But I think clearly, if you look at as you were saying, that if you look at the numbers, for example, then the number of security forces that have been killed in the last 5 to 6 years is considerably down compared to the number of Maoists or Naxalites who have been either taken on board or who have been killed, neutralized. So I think clearly there is some positive movement in one direction. But if you are looking at changing the very governance topography of a part of the country that have been very, very backward, it's not going to happen overnight.
Okay, it's going to take time. But Mr. Chaudhary, if you look at both things working hand in hand with each other, that is the governance, the developmental part of it, and obviously since if somebody is taking up guns against the elected government, then that has to be dealt with in a stern manner as well. So the security aspect, both will have to go hand in hand, and there's no doubt about that.
Vishal, I agree with Professor Pant that it's a socio-economic problem, exploitation of the poor, which has been taken advantage of by the Naxal think tank, so-called. On the other hand, the point I want to make is that nowhere in the world, leave aside Naxalism, nowhere in the world the problem of insurgency has been resolved through military and force action. It has to be hand in hand, get to the root of the problem, reach out to the people, bring them forward to join the mainstream in some way, give them vocation, let the development take place. That's the way to go ahead, and not just gun them down wherever you find them. And nowhere in the world, I mean, Mizoram, you take any place, even outside, you got to get the people on board. As long as there's a feeling of alienation, deprivation, exploitation, this will be taken advantage of.
But along with development, those people will also need to feel secure, and that would be with the presence of armed forces there.
Sure. There has to be presence of armed forces, and there has to be security for those who are peace-loving, who would like to... That's a big problem, but they're scattered. The terrain is such, it's such deep forest, Abu Jumar, where you cannot see the sun. You see, and our technical satellite imagery, our communication intelligence does not work in that area, which holds the key to finding out where are these armed groups hiding and get them.
Okay. So armed groups will also be tackled with properly. Let's bring in Mr. Singh here again. Mr. Singh, just a short while back, one of our panelists, Mr. Chaudhary, was talking about how the local police, the state police, will have to get its act together in terms of doing more than what it is doing right now in tackling this problem. So, as a former police officer, what do you believe needs to be done from the local police's perspective? We have paramilitary forces there, but from the local police's point of view.
See, I'm getting disconnected in between, so I have not heard you fully, but still I'll respond. I think I've broadly understood what you mean to say. See, I entirely agree that the capabilities of the state police have to be enhanced, very substantially enhanced, and I firmly believe that the state police should be in a position to tackle the Naxal problem head on the basis of its own strength. They should not be relying, at present what's happening is that they think it is centre's baby. It is not their problem, it is a national problem, and so the center should deal with it. That seems to be the attitude and the psychology at the state government level, which is absolutely wrong. They must understand that it is their problem and they have to tackle it. Whatever assistance they want from center will be given to them, but basically they have to deal with the problem, tackle it and get on top of it. That sense of responsibility I find missing in most of the states. I mean, the only state which went about it, the business seriously, was the state of Andhra Pradesh. I had occasion to see that at the ground level because I was there in Andhra Pradesh for more than 4 months when I was asked to inquire into the assassination attempt on Chandrababu Naidu, and I found that in every district, the district magistrate and the superintendent of police had some innovative scheme or the other to win over the Naxals, to win their hearts and minds. They went to the ground level and they went to the families of people who had joined Naxal ranks, tried to persuade them to bring your children back to the mainstream, etc., etc. And then their efforts were supplemented by the greyhounds. So they went about very systematically. But other states, I find mostly they think, "Baba, ये center का problem है, उनको लड़ने दो, हमसे क्या मतलब है? हम ठीक है, थोड़ा बहुत state police." Now, in that classic Dantewada incident where 75 CRPF personnel were killed, just one state police personnel was killed because that was the only strength they had provided. So 75:1 is that it should be their 75 and central forces 25 or 30. But it is absolutely topsy-turvy. The states must realize that it is their baby, it is their problem. They have to fight it out. Unfortunately, I have also noticed, and I'm sorry to say this, that some kind of a vested interest has developed in the continuance of Maoist insurrection. They think as long as this thing continues, we'll be getting a lot of extra funds, extra allocations, extra jeeps, extra manpower, whatnot. Okay. So I mean, so they say, ठीक है, चलता है, चलते रहने दो, center से पैसा आ रहा है, आने दो. Okay. That kind of attitude, it's most deplorable and reprehensible.
Okay, so the states will have to do much more than what they're doing right now. Professor Pant, do you agree that the states and specifically the state machinery in terms of the police machinery and obviously the local administration as well will have to put in more efforts, will match what the central government is doing?
Yes, and I think the modernization of Indian police is a topic that I think is so significant because police, after all, is a common man's first point of contact with the great idea of the state. If you do not have a police service in which ordinary Indians, ordinary citizens can have faith, then I think the real idea of India itself goes down. So
here we are talking about a group which is being, threatened or, making to stay alienated.
Absolutely. So I think that, you can do lots of things by bringing, streamlining the local police. And you are not only signaling a resolve for security, but you're also signaling a resolve for the larger administrative governance structures, because a lot of the times before even people will go to the administrative machinery, they believe that the police can deliver. So if the security apparatus can deliver on some of the basic grievances that people have, I think a lot of this alienation can be gotten rid of. But unfortunately, that is not happening at the local level. And unfortunately, people find that the first time they interact with the local police, they have a very bad experience, and that then boomerangs into something much bigger, complaint against the Indian state, complaint against the way they are being treated, and so alienation, exploitation, etc. develops. So I think the larger point here is ultimately the whole administrative machinery, both in terms of security and governance, will have to deliver if you have to go to the root of this problem. Because while you can kill so many Maoists and Naxalites and you can superficially deal with this problem. Ultimately, you will have to make a case to the ordinary citizens of this country that they have a better stake if they are integrated with the larger Indian state, and you can only do this if you are capable of showing them that you are delivering both in terms of governance and in terms of security. And in terms of basic, coin, you have the population-centric and enemy-centric approaches, and by and large, population-centric approach wins, where you try to win the hearts and minds by doing in governance, by bringing in better governance in the alienated and grievance-oriented sections of the society.
Okay. Mr. Chaudhary, for concluding, final comment from you, and would you agree with that aspect specifically, where both the centre and the state have the equal responsibility here on the ground, state more so?
Prakash Singh Vishal has hit the nail on the head. The central forces and the state police have to work hand in hand. Unfortunately, it does not happen. They have a representative from the state police, an assistant sub-inspector or somebody accompanying the party, but the district SP and the commandant, are they together? Unfortunately, it depends on local leadership. If they realize that it's our problem jointly, and district magistrate, they must come forward, not just deputing an assistant sub-inspector to show them the way. No, he is absolutely right. Unless both treat this as a problem of internal security, threatening the security of the country, it's not the state problem. Policing is a state subject. No state government can run away from this fact. It's a constitutional reality they have to come to terms with.
Okay, so finally, looks like both sides do have that responsibility. Let's have one concluding comment from Mr. Singh. Mr. Singh, according to you, what's the way forward from here? Because, it seems that we made some progress, in fact, a lot of significant progress, if we may put it in terms of data, in containing the problem of Naxalism. But we get to have that success, final success being achieved.
The way forward is you address the basic problem, the problem of poverty, the problem of unemployment, the problem of inequalities, the problem of tribal discontent, the problem of forest rights. These are basic problems which need to be addressed. And at the same time, the capabilities of the state police have to be enhanced, and the state governments must view it as their problem primarily, and that of the central government secondarily. Once that change in mindset comes, I think we'll start. Seeing the end of the Naxal problem.
Okay, so the change in mindset as well as working hand in hand with each other. Concluding comments from you, Professor Pant.
Yes, absolutely. I think I would continue to reiterate that it is very important. It is going to be very important for for Indian state machinery to start delivering on the ground. And unless we make the transition from a system whereby we are looking at it primarily through the security to a prism where we are looking at through the prism of development and delivery, I think we'll be missing the mark. So hopefully that as the security situation improves, which according to various indicators of the data it has, then I think the onus lies on those who are there to deliver on the ground, to deliver and deliver it well.
Okay, so clearly, as our panelists have pointed out, that as far as the problem of Naxalism is concerned, we have made some gains in terms of containing this problem. But from here onwards, all the stakeholders will have to build on this success and ensure that both things, that is development as well as the security aspect, go hand in hand. And for this, the centre and the state government machinery will have to act together. We'll come back again with a different topic and different set of guests. Till then, keep watching Rajya Sabha Television.